My Saka replacement is set in stone, and I have made a midfield and a forward transfer last night in my FPL team. Now, there's also a small chance I take a -4 hit this game week to bring in a very informed player. But let's take a look at who those players are in today's Fantasy Premier League video. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you all and your families. I personally have asked Santa Claus for 600 subscribers on YouTube, and I think I am on the nice list this year, so please do consider hitting that subscribe button for future FPL videos and deadline streams. Of course, I will be live on Boxing Day from 9 AM, but here we are with the defence, and here's how I'm going to line up this game week in particular. That double Arsenal defence structure with David Raya and Gabriel looks really strong this game week with that Ipswich at home fixture. I think Arsenal being at home on Boxing Day, it's just a great chance of a clean sheet this week. Hopefully, Gabriel can maybe get a headed goal as a Christmas present to me. But yeah, really happy with the Arsenal boys and their fixture this game week. Their fixtures start to get a little bit harder in the next 3 weeks or so, but I still think that double Arsenal defensive structure is a really great thing to have. Trent as well, a player that a lot of people have started bringing in their FPL teams, has arguably one of the best fixtures you could ask for. Leicester at home. I think when we analyse what happened in that Spurs game and that pass that Trent made to Luis Diaz for Luis Diaz's goal, and of course that Trent assist, was simply unbelievable. I absolutely love owning Trent in FPL, and it's literally for that pass. Just what a player. Kirkes, of course, a Crystal Palace at home fixture. Not an ideal fixture considering Palace's sort of rise in form. However, I did pick him a few weeks ago, and he rotates really nicely with Robinson on the bench. Robinson, of course, having a much harder fixture this game week than he did last week with Chelsea away from home, so he sits on the bench at the moment. But overall, with the defence, I'm really happy with how it looks. Perhaps Kirkes with that Crystal Palace fixture isn't ideal, but we'll get onto that as we go further into the team selection. But overall, super pleased with the defence this game week. Now, moving on to the midfield section, I want to speak just a little bit about my Saka replacement. And I'm going to start off on Fantasy Football Hub's Opta-Stats tool. I'm going to show you a few players that pop up in terms of data points that I really like for midfielders. I suppose the first one that we could look at is big chances created. There's a lot of options in this sort of 20-player list that do spark my interest personally. For those who are looking for Saka replacements at the moment, perhaps this is a great point of the video for you to watch. There are a lot of options at different price points, so it really depends on your team structure and how much money you have available at the moment. Of course, Heung-min Son very high up on this list. Palmer, if you don't yet own him, I think is a great option. Ismail Assar, great stats all around. Bruno Fernandes, one of my favourite options to replace Saka as well on this list. Odegaard pops up too. And if we look at another data point such as XG and XA, some of these players keep popping up on this list. Sort of Bruno Fernandes, a very staple player that fits onto this list over and over again. Amazing data overall. Heung-min Son slightly lower down on this list. Luis Diaz pops into play when we consider XG. Of course, he had an amazing game against Spurs. XA, of course, expected assists. Similar players again start to pop up. Foden actually starts to pop up as one of the more expensive options on this list. I'm personally not too keen on City at the moment, just as a team, so I'm not really considering Foden. Perhaps if we've seen in the last fixture that as an uptick in sort of their performance and how they play. I didn't see any signs of that personally, so I'm not considering the City man himself. Son popping up on this list, a great creative player, although his minutes and sort of how he's playing at the moment isn't ideal, but I still think he's an okay asset if you want to bring it in. Jacob Murphy, of course, on this list here and there, has had a good few game weeks, and maybe someone you could consider if you really want a Newcastle midfielder. Gordon as well, lower down, another Newcastle midfielder. Ismail Assar, again, popping up on this list. He seems like a current and sort of prevalent player in terms of data points, and maybe that's some subtle foreshadowing as we transition into my midfield setup for this game week. And of course, you will see, of course, Saka has left the squad and Ismail Assar has joined my team. I hope I'm saying his name right there. I'm just assuming. I will just call him Sa from now on in the video. But Sa has joined the team and Saka has left. For me, when you consider Sa, I think you have to consider his fixture run coming up. I wanted to get him in now because I do think he will start to rise in price, especially when we consider his fixture run coming up. I think this week with the Bournemouth away fixture, yes, it isn't ideal because I do have Kirkes in the defence, but I'm really looking at 19 onwards for the usability of Ismaila Sarr. You've got Southampton at home next week, which, of course, we all know is an amazing fixture. Southampton just aren't a Premier League team. They will get relegated this season. I just can't see a situation where they stay up, and I think it's a great fixture for Crystal Palace. Chelsea after that at home isn't ideal, but at least it is at home. And past that, you've got a really great run of fixtures, in my opinion. It's only really Manchester United away in sort of this fixture here, which isn't ideal because you are going away, but United haven't really been too defensively strong. Of course, they've just conceded 3 goals against Bournemouth, and then later down the line in 29, Newcastle away as well isn't a great fixture for Sarr. But overall, I think Sarr, considering his data and the fixtures coming up, is a really decent cheap option in FPL at the moment. And the reason I wanted to go cheap as a Saka replacement currently is because of who I've brought in up front, and we will see that in just a few minutes when we consider my forwards for the game week. But let's move along with the rest of the midfielders and kind of speak a little bit about the benching headache I have this week, and it's really between Morgan Rogers, Mbeumo and João Pedro, who's currently on my bench. I'm considering Rodgers more than João Pedro at the moment because of last fixture that City they just played against City. Rodgers was a fantastic player in that game. It really showed in that game how important he is going forward for Villa. It seems that sort of they're trying to find that through ball to John Duran or Ollie Watkins, whoever is up front. It probably will be Duran in this fixture. He was fantastic against City. But yeah, I just really like Morgan Rogers, and I think he will start in my FPL team over João Pedro. When you consider Mbeumo versus João Pedro, it becomes a little bit more interesting. We have both penalty takers there, and I think why Mbeumo starts over João Pedro for me personally this week is because of expected minutes. I expect João Pedro to come off a little bit earlier than someone like Mbeumo would. Mbeumo is a penalty taker, a 90-minute man in that Brentford side. Super important to how they play. Of course, he has been a little bit hit and miss in FPL over the last few weeks, scoring some weeks and assisting some weeks, and then just completely blanking and having no shots in some weeks. I'm really not sure where this is going to go with Mbeumo. I think it's the case, if I was to take a -4 to get someone like Bruno Fernandes in, Mbeumo would probably be the one to lead the squad. His fixtures coming up really aren't great. I have to be honest with you on that. But I think this week, it isn't too bad. So I am considering just keeping him, perhaps going a -4 in my forward line, which I'll talk a little bit about in a second. But overall, with that benching headache, I think I will bench João Pedro at the moment out of those 3 players. Palmer and Salah, I suppose these are where the captaincy options really are. For me, I think Fulham defensively are pretty decent, so I'm not really considering Palmer, to be completely honest with you, for captaincy this week. Salah is really the guy you want to be looking at for captaincy, in my opinion. That Leicester at home fixture, surely Salah gets that captaincy armband. He's just decimated Spurs. He is just the FPL king. There's no doubt about it. An unbelievable football player, and the way he is going this season, he will break his FPL point record by quite a bit, in my opinion. We've just got to see how the rest of the season pans out, of course, but overall that midfield I think looks super strong for the next few weeks of FPL. Perhaps Mbeumo leaving the squad, maybe this week for a -4 or in the next few weeks when the fixtures do start to turn. But overall, very happy with this midfield. Let's move up now to the forwards to see who else I brought in with my 2 free transfers this game week. Now, my second confirmed transfer that I made last night was Ross Stewart from my bencher player, who of course wasn't going to play for Southampton at all. That injury keeping him out of that squad. I've upgraded him massively to one of the most essential players in FPL right now, Alexander Isak of Newcastle. He's absolutely on form, playing out of his skin, and yes, he has a few difficult fixtures coming up, but past those harder fixtures, his fixture run looks really, really nice for Newcastle. And I think, to be honest, even in these difficult fixtures coming up, he has great opportunities to score. I mean, Villa aren't exactly watertight when you consider things. So for me, I think Alexander Isak is a great transfer. And of course, I brought him in before that rise to 9 million. I think he will continue to rise over the next 6 weeks in FPL as people start to realise that this is the guy to own as your forward at the moment. I think Nicholas Jackson alongside Isak is a really important player that is going to be a part of people's FPL structures in the next few weeks, even considering that Saka isn't going to be available most likely for at least a few weeks. We've seen him in crutches, so that sort of gives us a little bit more money, that Saka money, to move into other areas of our FPL teams. Now, Cunha stays at the moment in my FPL team. And of course, I mentioned a -4, not only in the intro, but in the midfield section as well. And if I don't remove Mbeumo to go to someone like maybe Odegaard, Bruno Fernandes, Kulusevski, then I think the -4 will be taken into consideration to get Cunha out if it is the case that his ban will be put in place for that United fixture, before that United fixture at home. Now, of course, we've seen Wolves last week have a little bit of a better performance, looking a bit more in form than they had done under Gary O'Neill. Of course, Cunha getting that goal, and I believe 3 bonus points as well, which is fantastic for people who had the nerve to keep him and take that risk with him possibly facing a ban. But I still think Cunha will be available for this week. But when I consider a -4 replacement for Cunha, in my opinion, there's a few players you can look at. Now, at the moment, in terms of an in-form player that I really like the look of, is actually Gabriel Jesus. And there's no surprise when I mention that name, because sort of the goals he has scored recently are really, really attractive. I mean, I have just replaced Saka and got Sarr. That means I don't have an Arsenal attacker right now, and I kind of want that kind of attacker in my team, whether that's Odegaard coming in and Mbeumo leaving the squad, or it's Cunha leaving the squad to get Gabriel Jesus. I quite like that move, and I think it is worth a -4 when you consider the fixture, especially this game week. But ideally, I wouldn't make a -4 this week. I'll just keep Cunha for this Man United at home fixture. I mean, we've just seen Man United concede 3 against Bournemouth. Hopefully, the new manager bounce of Wolves and Cunha not facing the ban is sort of a great opportunity for rank gain, and perhaps that's why I keep Cunha. But I suppose we are just waiting for information on that ban currently. I think he should be okay to play this Manchester United fixture at home. You consider the other bans that have been faced, that have been given to players this season. Bentancur's sort of taken 3 weeks to a month for his ban. Similarly with Kudus and Morgan Gibbs-White. So I think there's a great chance he is available for this fixture. But of course, the way he acted after that Ipswich fixture wasn't ideal, and I think it will be acted upon pretty quickly. So perhaps this is the last fixture that we'll see Matheus Cunha available for a while for Wolves. But when you look at their fixture run, it's kind of not a player I want to keep a hold of too long past this game week's fixture. Overall, this is how I'm going to be lining up for game week 18. There is still that conversation to be had about João Pedro. Of course, we are in the forward section of the video. I need to speak a little bit about João Pedro. I think he has been super disappointing. I still think at the price point, a penalty taker who is very important in that Brighton team, he's still a player to consider keeping a hold of if you can. For me, I think he will stay on the bench this game week in particular. I'm sort of just going to wait it out and kind of consider some extra information perhaps we get before that Boxing Day deadline. But overall, that looks like a really, really strong team. And of course, a 99% rated by Fantasy Football Hub is always great to see when you plug your team into their software. But yeah, really happy with how the team looks. Of course, the transfers, just to recap, were Saka out, Sarr in, Ross Stewart out, and Alexander Isak in. So that is the FPL team for game week 18. Now, of course, the deadline is on Boxing Day, and I plan to be doing my deadline stream at 9 AM, just like normal. And of course, if you have enjoyed today's video and you want to give me a little Christmas present, drop a like on the video. And if you aren't subscribed, please do consider subscribing. I'm so close to 600 subscribers, and it would be a fantastic present to get that before Christmas. But that is everything for today's video. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Merry Christmas and happy holidays.